Hi everyone, so here is Moonlight Soul with my good friend and my fellow evolutionary astrologer Adrienne Gibson from Just Getting Astrology, and today we are meeting together to talk about the upcoming lunation, the lunar eclipse full moon in Taurus. Welcome Adrienne, it's nice to have you back.
Well, thank you all. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. This is a big moon coming up, and I think we have a lot to talk about.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's always a pleasure. I'm so grateful for these get-togethers.
Yeah,
Cool, shall we dive in then?
let me just bring up the chart.
Give people some visual.
There you go. So this is in Eastern time, in Tennessee is where I am for the 28th of October 2023 at 4:24 p.m. And I'm not sure what the time is like where you are.
Well, for me in Central Europe is 22:24. Like it's like at night. 24 past 10 in Central Europe for us over here.
Yeah. Cool.
But the degree is the same. 5 degrees 9 minutes.
5 degrees 9 minutes. Yep.
Right on my sun.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, right on my sun in Taurus.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you with my Taurus eclipse. Okay, yeah. So as we mentioned, this is going to be quite an eclipse, especially because it's closing a 2-year cycle. The first eclipse in Taurus happened on November 19th in 2021. And of course, we had this 1.5 year period in between when we had the North Node transiting through the sign of Taurus. So I'm sure for a lot of people that brought a lot of insights.
Yeah. Yep. Closing off with the moon in Taurus again.
Exactly. Yeah, it was full moon back then and it's a full moon now. And yeah, it's the topics are definitely interesting. And I have the chart here for the 2021. And as we spoke prior to recording, at that time it was Mercury and Mars and Sun in a closing phase to South Node. And at that time, the South Node was still in the sign of Sagittarius. So it's interesting that now it's happening in a new phase. We already had the conjunctions.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we had definitely some interesting breadcrumbs coming up with regards to this Jupiter energy, because the moon is in conjunction with Jupiter.
Yes, it is. And it's in a closing phase. So there's some things that we are completing within ourselves with respect to our beliefs. What's true? What's true? What's not true? How do we see ourselves in this dynamic of reality that we're experiencing right now?
Exactly, and because it is opposition, it is the the full moon after all, so that always requires a balance, a harmony.
A balance, yeah.
So at the moment, what we are experiencing individually and collectively, it's a anything but. There is a lot of extreme, a lot of imbalance, which, as we know, archetypically, Venus, Venus Libra, and the last lunation we had prior was the first solar eclipse, the new moon in Libra. Libra is inherently not balanced. This is what the Libra is trying to achieve. And now we have in this full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, and during which time the world is not quite balanced, let's just say.
Yeah, not quite balanced. And it's interesting here recently, I've been understanding the Taurus archetype as part of this emotional energy to keep things hidden. Because sometimes the dynamic is that when things are hidden, it'll keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, like, as a child, if you don't, did you do this? No, I didn't do that. And you do that so that you're not going to get punished. And it's the same thing that happens with adults. And so, and even more than that, people will stay quiet and hold things in and keep things hidden, while Scorpio is this energy of like penetrating to uncover and expose what is hidden. And so here we have the sun shining its light on what's being exposed. At the same time, our inner sense of selves, our emotional field is trying to keep safe. And it's linked to what our truth is.
Yeah, because it's protecting the story of the past. This Jupiter in a closing phase conjunction with Uranus, and still both of them being retrograde. So in essence, it's making us to deeply reevaluate and introspect about whether this still holds a value to us.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I agree with that. And then that Uranus down there is bringing some shocking stuff up.
Yeah, for sure.
To be able to bring change.
And it is in opposition with Mars. And that's actually exactly what was going on in the sky during that first eclipse, which was a lunar eclipse in Taurus in 2021. We had an exact Mars-Uranus opposition at that time.
Really?
Also. Yep. And it was.
And now it's exact with Jupiter, which is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Jupiter, and the day after we having the Mars and Mercury conjunction. So this is again the archetype of communication, how we identify reality, and Mercury, Mars, and Sun are bringing out all this shadow of human collective and individual consciousness for us to look at.
Yep. Yes, that is happening. And Pluto, the backdrop, Pluto still squaring the nodes. Pluto now going forward, been going forward since the solar eclipse.
That's right, yeah. October 11th.
But what's new is Mercury, Venus is on the scene. And I think that Venus is really important in this chart. One, because it's ruling the node, the south node, but it's also ruling the Moon and Jupiter, because they're both in Taurus. And so Venus is making an approach now coming on the scene, where we're going to have to like really discern for ourselves what our, how we survive and how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to other people.
Absolutely. And Venus is just going over everything that already got activated by Mars, and then illuminated by Sun, and then gone over and over again by Mercury because of its retrograding Virgo. Right. So Venus is retouching and reactivating all these points. And actually, she just recently had the exact trine to Jupiter, and she's just about to have the exact trine to Uranus. And she's, of course, ruler to all of those, as you mentioned. She's the ruler of this eclipse. She's actually ruler of both of eclipses that we are experiencing now in this eclipse season, because Libra and Taurus are both ruled by Venus. So Venus certainly is playing a very, very essential role. And she's at the precipice of that kite, just like we had previously Mercury, and then actually first was Mars, and then Mercury, and then Sun, and then Mercury again. And now we have this kite present in the sky again because of the grand Earth trine that is still taking place between Venus, Pluto, and Uranus. And previously it was all these different actors in the same position Venus is at the moment, which is again give us the opportunity for grounding that which we bring in from the above, because it's in opposition with Pisces and Neptune.
Yeah. Yep. Also with Mars, Mars is beginning this new phase to the sun as well, where we're going to be actioning our Pluto a little bit differently, taking in and bringing some, it's like, I see it as like a deep dive. We're pushing those buttons to bring things to the surface so that they can be seen and explored. And like literally uncovered from that hidden side over there in the moon sign and Jupiter, just bringing truth and our really, we're down to this energy where we're looking at our very survival. And Mars is giving us the opportunity to try something new.
Absolutely. And I mean, there will be a conjunction between Sun and Mars, and then Mars will again enter the balsamic phase, but it will not be until November 18th, and in between we'll still have the new moon in Scorpio, ruled by Mars traditionally. And
Right.
that will again, I feel, create some shift. But between now and then, there is a lot that we are diving into with regards to the shadow of what it means to be human, because also with Venus being in a sign of Virgo, it's bringing to our awareness that this is all hero's journey. To me, Venus always represents the archetype of hero's journey, because it's this continuous learning and adjusting and falling and standing up and trying again until eventually we will have mastered it. And now with Venus being in opposition with Neptune and making all these other aspects, I think it once again is an opportunity for us to try to create a balance between our human selves and the roles that we came here to play, and our higher selves and the unconditional love, because in essence we all came from the same place and return back to the same place. And the in between is the learning that we came here to experience in this school of life called Earth.
Yes. Yes. And it's not easy, but I think at this time, what we're trying to do is bring the authority and the protection and the boundaries of life back into ourselves, where for so many eons, we've given the power outside of ourselves. And I think ultimately this is Pluto square the nodes. I know I've talked about it before, but it's still here. And while that's going on, these other planets are just coming along and making those tiny adjustments to that. You know, there's more to uncover right now. So we have this triad in Scorpio where we're literally uncovering some energy that needs to be looked at so that we can move forward.
Yeah, and everybody that just entered Scorpio made an exact trine to Saturn, retrograde in Pisces. So this is again all the things that's coming to the surface. We have the opportunity to redefine and see as, does it still hold a meaning, or is it actually the story of the past, which is connected to someone other than you, some external authority? And once again, it gives us the opportunity to internalize our authority, to say that, okay, yes, this helped me to navigate through life for all these times or whatever incarnations, but now that has become senescent, right? It lost meaning. It's because Pluto now it's going direct, and it's still in Capricorn, and it's saying that, well, now we need to kind of go forward, even though it's going over the same territory. But it's like, okay, now we know, we didn't know before, we gone over it, and now what we're gonna do now?
Yeah, well, we're gonna be taking that new step forward, you know, and the North Node is pointing that direction as well. We're moving forward as far as, you know, how we are going to emotionally evolve and how we're going to see ourselves and how we're going to begin to take this new direction. But we can't take the new direction without letting go of some of the baggage. And some of that baggage is now being exposed so that we can bring it to the surface and try to resolve it. You know, we've got to resolve some old stuff, you know, ways of thinking. You know, Mercury's in a closing phase to Mars right now. And there's a way of thinking that needs to be brought to the surface and changed. Mercury's going to cross right back over here, and then we'll begin a new way of thinking.
Exactly.
Which we'll have to integrate as well over time. So
yeah, now being in the Scorpio season, I feel that because of everything that we've been stimulated to observe from the external during the Libra season, and also having the opportunity to experience the seeding of which during the eclipse, the solar eclipse. Now we have the incline or the push, whichever way we want to look at it, to take it on the internal, the Scorpio, the very, like yin energy, these watery energies. We can see majority of the planets at the moment, almost all of it, apart from the nodes, Chiron, yes, all the planets are in the feminine signs.
They
so
are.
This is all this earth and water, which is all very intuitive, which is, again, we got all these external triggers, let's just say, and now we have the opportunity to take it inwards and process it.
Yes.
To analyze it and go into this deep inquiry to try to investigate and get to the bottom of it. And that takes us back to Pluto, being the modern ruler of Scorpio. What is this teaching us about this structure of the reality we are experiencing, and who is the creator of it? And do we want to continue to experience the same reality or different one, for which we need to take responsibility and say, no, thank you, I've had this experience, I'm done with that, with the Jupiter in the closing phase. I want a different one now. But then we have to create it.
Yes. But before we can move forward, like you said, we have to really understand and process what we've been through, on the individual level and on the collective level. We're having to process quite a lot. And then we'll have the opportunity, we'll make different choices. Venus is in Virgo. We're going to be discerning what our needs are, and discerning how we want to relate with ourselves. What do we want? What do we need? And how are we going to relate with other people to have those needs met? And this opposition with the sun and the moon, this kind of huge conglomeration of opposition, is saying we have to seek some kind of balance. We have to, and we are certainly experiencing extremes at this time. But we're definitely going to need to seek balance and really internalize, bring it in. This is the in-breath right now. And
I'm just really getting this energy of this temperance card, the card in the tarot.
Oh yeah.
After the death, I think it's the number 14, right? The death is
number
13. And that's like how I'm feeling now, that we are experiencing all these metamorphoses going on around us and inside of us. But with the Virgo and the Pisces, Venus, Neptune opposition, that is, forming. It's not exact, but it's forming. It's already valid within the degree, but it won't be exact until November, I believe, 4th. All that said, there is this opportunity for healing, because the balance will only come through healing. Because you see, like I always say that if everybody needs what they need, we all have our unique set of needs, which makes you who you are. Also, with the Leo, it makes you who you are, your authentic expression. And if these needs are not being met, and if they are not being met over a long period of time, they become distorted. They become like huge. Before first it's just a small need, but imagine if you go hungry for a long period of time, then it becomes like absurd. The need becomes absurd. It becomes like twisted, right?
Yes.
So in essence, we need to learn to recognize what is that need, that unmet need, and then like who is responsible for meeting that need, and that's obviously ourselves. And then I just feel that what really needs to take place is a lot of inner awareness and healing, because making the same choices as we have done, whether individually or collectively, for a long period of time, will only lead to the same outcomes.
Yes, that's what they say.
Yeah, right. The definition of insanity, isn't it?
Exactly.
Einstein, right? And that's why I repeat myself in my own personal windows where I say there is nothing new under the sun. Everything that we've experienced already happened. You know, there's nothing new in the sun, under the sun. And the reason why we are experiencing the same things is because the same choices are being made. The same solutions are being presented that lead to the same outcome.
Yeah. You know, I think of it sometimes like, you know, we've been in this particular way for a long time, and it's like, say it's in a box, right? And the door of the box is now opened and we can step out, but we don't, it's like where we are is already so comfortable, even though it's been, you know, distorted and restrictive. But the fear of stepping out of that box is great. And I think that maybe this is why we're experiencing these extremes right now, because we really have the opportunity to make changes. It's coming up. You know, we have, the nodes are going to be in Aries Libra for a while longer, and we're going to be working through these extremes, but ultimately to take that step forward and to begin to make those changes. But I think that a lot of inner work has to be done on the individual level and on the collective level, you know, with these, you know, larger societies. But ultimately, you know, my personal preference is peace.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's find some harmony here. You know, we're all sharing this planet together. We have to find a way to make it work for all of us. I mean all of us. And we've been in a very big unbalance for a very long time. And these, you know, these kinds of extremes are going to keep coming around until we try to achieve the balance. It's, you know, when it's unbalanced, it's just always going to flip back and forth. It can't do anything until we're standing in the center of it. And so I feel like the universe is helping us to do the work that's necessary. And if that is the penetrating eye and mind and the light of the sun to shine on the darkness and the shadow that we're all dealing with at this time, you know, we should take heed. Not everybody's going to do that because, you know, we've been in the box so long, it might be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Stockholm syndrome, isn't it?
It's a lot like the Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and again,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I was talking to my friend earlier, and she was describing it as like being in a jack in a box. Like there's this energy when you've been restricted for such a long time, but then the box opens and you kind of come out with a over extreme reaction even. And I was thinking, well, that's interesting. I could see that as a reality.
It's like a high strung, you know, like it just got too you know, too constricted, and then it just wants to release, right?
Exactly. Or like, you know, if you haven't had food in a long time, the first inclination is to overeat. They say like with starving animals or something, that if you feed them too much, they'll hurt themselves. It's just this over exuberant energy to make up for that lack.
It's like a gluttony, isn't it?
So
but it's also like, you know, with all of this, it again, like just like with the Stockholm syndrome or any of these, like when people do have a choice, or like even with the Aries, right, the new beginning and the opportunity with the clean slate, this new energy, it takes so much responsibility, because as we know with the Aries Capricorn, there is a square, because there has to be this process of maturation. It all has to go through Virgo and all these other signs, right? And the Aries doesn't see the Virgo because there's an inconjunction. But it really, in order for us to, that's why Mars is exalted in Capricorn. They say Mars wakes up every day to become a Capricorn, you know, to get to that point that, hey, I'm at the top of my game, I'm the creator and the, you know, the manifester of my reality. But you have always been that, you know, we were all born that. Even like when people say like, oh, I want to be sovereign, but you were born sovereign, you know. It's just like,
Yes.
again, this belief systems and how we identify reality and what do we think and what do we believe. And like it's all crazy, because what really we observe in our reality is just a manifestation of our thoughts and belief systems. So it's so
Yes.
crazy when people, myself included, for many parts of my life, I expect the external to change so I can shift what I think or believe. But it doesn't work like that, because what you think and what you believe has created that. So the change will never happen externally. It has to shift internally. And this is also with this, you know, Moon in a closing phase to Jupiter and Jupiter in a closing phase to Uranus, you know, with the story of Taurus, the story of who you are and your capability and your ability to manifest and create and survive, and actually the understanding that you are the asset. I always say that to my clients: if you were to quit your job, you know, you're not gonna leave that ability to do your job there. Yeah, you might leave your computer behind if it was the company's, but that which created the service or the product or whatever you were providing your employer with, you're taking that with you, because that's your Taurus. But many people don't see themselves that way. They feel that they need that something external to create, but it's the other way around. So that's why I usually, you know, just to make people question things or to help them, support them in the process of questioning things, I say, just imagine that majority of what you've been ever told is inverted. So try to flip it on its head, and maybe you come closer to the truth, or maybe you will come on the path of finding the balance. But why not question things, right?
Yeah, I mean, always. And this is the Scorpio archetype, to really question and confront and uncover what the truth is and who we are. You know, we're having to do that before we move forward. We have to know who we are. We have to know what we need. And we have to be willing to make that deep dive into ourselves and to find out what it is that we're attached to and why we have so much fear to step forward. And, you know, I think a lot of it's, you know, linked to the history. You know, a lot of us are living on a history that we, you know, weren't really here for. And there's a lot of fear associated with what's going on in those history books. And so this society kind of builds itself to protect against those fears, and they might not be there now. You know, they might not. Making a different choice might create a different reality. We can't just say that it's, I mean, I think history repeats itself only because we don't make the changes. We don't take the step in the new direction. You know, you're 5 years old, you're going to kindergarten. And everybody keeps following the same wheel, just keeps going around, and, you know, things don't really shift that much. But I think that they can. I think that one thing is that, like you said, we have to take inner responsibility to make that change. And sure, things it's anxiety producing, because anytime you make a change, it's a little bit scary. But you know, I think that in the event of extremes, and if we don't want to repeat ourselves, we really have to take that step forward, because I think that this reoccurrent past is more detrimental.
Well, I feel like just the word, and I never thought about it before, history It's called his story.
His story.
It's not even your story, it's somebody else's story, it's his story, right?
Yes.
So that's the main thing, you know, that I want people to think about. History is actually not your story, it's his story, it's somebody else's story. But the other thing, it's I feel, and this is something that I've been intuitively tapping into, and of course this is not to fearmonger or scare anyone, but I feel that this is it. This is it. There is no going back to like patch things up, put a plaster on it, and then 5-10 years later we're gonna have the same experience here. No, now Pluto is in charge. Pluto is the one squaring the nodes. Saturn as the ruler is in Pisces. Pisces is the end. It's the end of the cycle. It's the end of the story. Jupiter is in the close, just like me and you and all our other friends and me with my other friends. We've been talking about this forever now, for like many months.
Yes.
There are so many closing phases. And even though now the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are all in a new phase with South Node, which is the past, which is where Pluto is pointing to this, you need to resolve this. And as I mentioned to you at the beginning of our conversation, during the time when the first eclipse in Taurus happened in 2021, on November 19th, all these were in a closing phase with the South Node. South Node at the time was in Sagittarius. Jupiter, as the ruler of the South Node, was squaring the nodes. Resolution node was the South Node ruled by Jupiter. What is this telling us? It was the beginning of the end of the story. And now where we find ourselves, we have all these planets that made a conjunction to the South Node in a new phase conjunction with the South Node, but Chiron, as the collective wound, the Aries, oh, it's too scary, it is unknown, let's just stick with the known, the Stockholm syndrome, right? It's still in a closing phase with the North Node, and North Node, as we know, is this evolutionary potential, and Pluto is saying, no, you're not getting, like, just like you said, you're not getting there until you resolve this, because this is important. But now we have all these players, all these personal planets, Sun, the luminary, Mercury, our cognitive function, and Mars, how Pluto takes action consciously, in a new phase with South Node. So now is the beginning of the solving of death, because by the time Mars and Sun and Mercury and all of these guys will, you know, like conjunct North Node between the beginning of next year and Aries season, you know, by then we'll have a full moon in Libra. So we'll know what all this was about, and another new moon in Aries on April 8th. So, I mean,
right,
the time is kind of now, you know, time is now, because things, especially with the intensity of Scorpio, things are not going to quieten down, especially now Pluto being the, you know, the ruler of Scorpio, squaring all this stuff. It's still squaring this moon, even though it is out of sign, you know, I mean, it's squaring both Sun and moon, even though it is out of sign square, but it's still within degree. It's still within 10-degree orb. So technically it is still squaring this moon, the full moon in Taurus. So this is what I mean, like there is no going back. There is no going that, okay, let's just have another patch up solution from, you know, of the same issue that's been like reappearing for hundreds and thousands of years, and let's just patch it up, you know. So it's like, okay, for, you know, a few decades, somebody gets, you know, wealthy on this solution that we are presenting over here. But in essence, nothing changed. And then because nothing changed long term. And then, you know, like few decades later, another generation will have the same issue going on here. This is not going to happen again. It's literally the time is now to resolve it, because Jupiter and Uranus are about to have a conjunction in April and saying this story is done. The story is done, sorry. Venus is the ruler of Jupiter and Uranus, and she's the ruler of the resolution node being squared by Pluto, being the South Node, the past, saying you're not getting any further until this is resolved. And we have until January 2025, because that's when the nodes move to Pisces, Virgo. And what is that? The end. Is the end of the Pisces era. Is the opportunity for ultimate healing and integration and coming whole, because Pisces and Neptune ultimately is returning back to the source, because in essence that's where we all came from, and that's where we all return, and the in between is just the experience you choose to have in this incarnation, because we all been everything.
Yes, we have. And it's really important to note that this Pluto squaring the nodes is about a skip step. there's something missing. You know, we've done the bypass and we can't go any further. This is why the Pluto is squaring the nodes just before we come to the end of the cycle. We can't skip the step any further and move forward. We have to find the balance between that energy that's outside of us and that energy that's inside of us. Each one of us has to do that on a personal level, and as a result, that will make the change on the collective level. Because the outside, like herding cats, you can't. I mean, we've tried. I mean, this is maybe part of this Capricorn Pluto, that this controlling it from the outside just hasn't worked. You can't really do that. You know, you've got it maintains an imbalance. And what needs to happen is that the individuals on the planet need to mature emotionally. When you place the responsibility for yourself outside of yourself, and the responsibility for, you know, all the things, when you place it outside of yourself, what happens is you're not developing the emotional resiliency inside yourself, the ability to, you know, make changes, take charge, create. You don't have any experience at it. And because of the lack of experience, we just keep putting it outside of ourselves. Oh, I can remember one time I was talking about something to my mother, which is years ago. She's no longer living, but I can't remember. It was something environmental. And she said to me, "Oh, well, there's somebody taking care of that." I was like, we have to do this from the inside. We can't leave it to somebody else. We keep leaving it to somebody else. It doesn't change. We have to be able to take responsibility from inside ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we can't all have shared responsibilities. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that what we've been doing is putting the power outside of ourselves for so long that we've literally emotionally crippled ourselves. And that leads to these extremes, the imbalance that we're creating. And so I think that it's really important to resolve this South Node.
And it's also with the Saturn and the Neptune in Pisces, as we had discussed previously, with the lower vibration of Neptune, is the victimhood mentality, you know, like, but you don't understand. This is what happened to me, you know, and holding on to these stories. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm not saying this story, you know, is not truth or wasn't in that experience. But do we need to perpetuate the same story? And, you know, like, again, with somebody else being in charge of your reality, you know, like externalizing our power and saying it's somebody else's fault, or they did this, or, you know, they are responsible, whatever, we will never feel the sense of self-empowerment for as long as somebody else is. That's why, like, during the 2020, 21, the biggest joke of the history was, if you do this A, B, C, and D, you're gonna be free. When did freedom become conditional? You know, it's the same like with love. If it's conditional, you know, if you have to tick all these boxes, then, you know, what are we really getting? It's not that thing that you're trying to get, right? So, you know, again, like, if the power is being externalized and somebody's saying, what do you need to get? What do you need to, like, you know, do for it or whatever? Then obviously you are not the one in charge, right? So that's why, like, even if somebody did something to you, for you, whichever way you want to look at it, for as long as you give them the power and say it's that person's fault and there's nothing I can do, and we holding on to that story, then we will never feel empowered. There will never be a change, because we'll be externalizing our power and saying that you are the creator of my reality. And the same goes for the inability to forgive, you know, for anger, which of course this is a healthy thing to a certain extent, because it's an emotion which is part of the whole range of human emotion that we need to feel. Otherwise it will eat us inside and again become distorted. However, how long do we want to hold on to it?
Yeah. I think forgiving is very, very important. And I don't think that we do that very often. Certainly, it doesn't seem like we do it on the collective level.
Even in the individual, like, just the amount of judgment we cast onto each other for the lack of perfection that we defined as what it is, because who is the one to decide what is perfect, right? And
Right.
I can observe that even in my own reality, and I would be the first one to to not cast the stone at someone else, because I even observe myself doing that. When I say, oh, that person is like that and that, and then I observe it myself, well, I'm the one judging now, right? So that's why this discernment and observation and inner work, so it's so important, because every time that we get triggered or observe something from our outer that then triggers us, upsets us, makes us angry, we need to investigate why, and what does it reflect this about that unhealed aspect of myself, the need that wasn't met a long time ago, because that is the the echo of that experience from long time ago. Because majority of triggers don't trigger something that it's not about what's happening right now, it's about something that happened a long time ago, and this is just a reminder of that experience. And that's why the internal work, and it's, again, it doesn't mean that just to put a head in the sun and say, la la, not my reality, doesn't apply to me, because we are all part of the human collective consciousness and everything applies to everyone. However, you cannot change the world, you have to start from you. So that's why us casting the stones and pointing the fingers and say, is that person's fault, nothing to do with me, somebody else is taking care of that. We tried that tactic before, we tried that story before, and where did it get us? To the same place.
Yep. Yes. Agreed. So let's see. Trying to see if there was, we still have the finger of God aspect with the South Node and Neptune and Uranus. That'll be there.
Yeah, it's going to be there
for a bit longer.
Because they're still retrograde. Neptune,
they are still retrograde. Yes. Again, pointing to that South Node.
The South Node is within the show.
The South Node is and Venus is making its way. So
yeah, Venus is going to make a conjunction with the South Node. Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And she's gonna start a new phase, just as the others did.
Yep, she's been lagging just because she had a nice long retrograde period.
Yeah, she had a bit of a holiday in Leo over the summertime.
Yeah.
Helping us to understand our purpose. Because in essence, that's literally what it is. Your purpose coming here to this planet was to be happy. Just to find who you are and become that what you came here to become, not to become someone else. And that's another thing I always remind to my client, which is you weren't born to live somebody else's life. You came here to become you,
Yes.
So that's what this Venus in Leo was trying to bring home during her long retrograde in Leo.
Yes. And now in Virgo, here she is trying to help us adjust some of those changes that we found out about in Leo. Making some
practice. She puts it into practice.
You need the practice, really taking those steps to put it into action. And then, Venus will be in its own sign where we'll really be able to reflect how those changes have made see what a difference it'll make. Because in Virgo, it's kind of just like step by step. If we make a mistake, oh well, let's pick it up and try a different way. Just adjust. But I feel like Venus in Virgo ultimately helps us to make those changes and make those adjustments necessary to be able to resolve that South Node, which, is the whole point right now. We have to resolve it on the individual level and on the collective level. We have to look at, how we've related to ourselves, how we relate to other people, where we've experienced the extremes, and try to seek balance. And I think for a lot of that, it's about putting more energy into ourselves and trying to seek balance that way, because I think it's just an energy that's been pervasive, that people put the energy outside of themselves constantly. It's always sacrificing the self so that we don't rock the boat in our relationships. Oh, we don't need this to happen, or and I think that we will, even though it is scary, we will begin to find balance as we pull into ourselves. And I think this is what this moon is also telling us. We need to withdraw into ourselves, discover what our needs are, discern what those needs are, how we can promote them before Venus gets over there next to the South Node, or on the South Node. And so we're working through it.
It's about the ability to communicate that, because, like with this Venus in Virgo, there could be also the memory of the shame, because Venus is the ruler of the South Node, the memory of the shame, they're not good enough, which again, like in essence, imagine a little child that doesn't get its needs met, and it's made feel that you don't matter, that, like you should be feeling guilty and ashamed for needing what you need. And what does that do to a child when it grows up? And then it tries to get its needs met by manipulation, in a relationship where it's not speaking out loud what it needs, but this time is a woman or a man. And then, like I said, when it gets more distorted and it tries to get needs met, just like some people in the world that are acting out at the moment in a very extreme ways, because all these people used to be children at some point, like they weren't born in this size with these beliefs and all that. So again, to me, Venus being the ruler of the South Node and currently doing what she's doing, this trine to Pluto, the trine to Uranus at the same time of this eclipse. And this is the second one being squared by Pluto, second one ruled by Venus. And I feel, because this is the thing in evolutionary astrology, which I'm trying to help people understand, trines are not necessarily positive. People think, oh, it's a trine, so it should be hunky-dory, easy, rainbows and butterflies. But no, in evolutionary astrology, the trines only means that this energy is going to, like, there's not going to be resistance for this energy. It's just going to go through, because we are ready for this energy. But just because there is a trine between Pluto and Uranus, it doesn't mean that there is nothing challenging happening. And that's just as in evolutionary astrology, I was always surprised to perceive or get used to perceiving squares as something positive, because it required something that needs change, because it creates this tension that needs change, which is what Pluto is doing the entire year. So actually, from the evolutionary point of view, the way we look at this experience is this astrological, as above, so below, as within, so without. The trines are not necessarily easy, and the squares are not necessarily bad. And that's why when my clients ask me, I don't do predictive, obviously, but when they ask me, oh, is this good or is it bad? I say, well, that depends on you, because there is no such a thing, because all these things serve a positive purpose, and then they can be experienced in a more challenging way. But what is good or bad is up to your interpretation, because within every tragic experience, there is something positive that comes out of it. And within every positive experience, there is a potential for something tragic to happen, to come out of it. Just like the Scorpio archetype we've been experiencing in our classes recently, like our teacher Simon said, in order to feel alive, you have to experience death. Otherwise, how would you know the difference, right?
Yep. It's the superimposing of the opposites. It's that, I can't remember which book I was reading, but they were trying to describe this kind of energy. And they said, if you take a white circle and you put it on a white piece of paper, you can't see the circle. You have to be able to put it up on the black circle piece of paper so that you can see the difference. Exactly. And I think that's I always think about that we have these extremes so that we can discern the difference between them. And, you know, both of them are just two sides of one coin. They're
exactly,
but in the way that we perceive them, they're very different. And I think instead of maybe shying away from these shadows and these other parts that we don't want to see, we need to incorporate them into the reality. And I think that speaks to the Scorpio archetype, where you have to, you know, experience death to live life. Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I feel, that this Venus trine to Pluto and to Uranus, these very, very strong energies that are not personal planets. Venus is, but Pluto and Uranus, they are not personal planets.
No.
The evolution is going to take place no matter what, you know, whether we are ready for that or not. So Venus making a trine to these personal planets is saying, if I need to re-traumatize you and make you re-experience all these challenges, so you know what needs to change by polarity of that experience, I'm gonna do that. And that's what I feel is happening. Like, in a sense, Venus is just she's assisting in that process, because she's reactivating the same point as Mars, Mercury, Sun, all activated already. Mercury twice because of the retrograde. And this is like, that's what I mean. Like, astrology is just a tool to help us identify what is going on in our reality, and to also give us kind of like a validation that, yes, you're not going crazy, actually there is a reason for this. But on the evolutionary level, the evolution is happening, and it's not going to wait for us. And unfortunately, in order for us to move forward with all this, Pluto entering into the Aquarius, and Uranus then is going to eventually enter into Gemini, and Saturn and Neptune into Aries, and this is all masculine energy. I mean, I cannot even comprehend in my little microcosm reality, with my limitation of my brain and experience, what that will mean to have all these big planets in a masculine signs. So that's what I feel, that these, like, you know, as we discussed previously, like when you look at the chart and you say, I don't believe there is a God or universe or whatever the hell you want to call it, it doesn't really matter what is the label. Like, how can you not? Like, you know, I mean, when I look at these charts and how the planets always play the chess, you know, put themselves in a position to help us understand the energy, and also to manifest the energy needed for us to understand what needs to be done in order for us to move forward with life and stuff. It's just like, it is so in a sense perfect, you know, like, if that there is such a thing, like sometimes in this tragic expression.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know even how to express what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. It's, I mean, it's a magical universe. That's how I describe it. And with it, you know, depending on how you're perceiving things as positive and negative, like you said before, it's all perfect the way that it is. Even the perfection can be difficult and can be tragic. You can have all of these things, you know. Pisces is the oneness. It's all of the experiences and all of the things. And I'm thinking about, like, when you said, you know, not being able to imagine all of the planets being in masculine signs. I was like, I can't even. Well, it's like we have so many in feminine signs right now, where it's like the in-breath, and we're taking things in, and we're ruminating on those things on the inside, but the out-breath is coming, and we're going to snap into action. You know, that's all I can think about how it would be. I mean, I don't know either, but we will certainly see. It won't be long.
Yeah, by 2026, and by that point the nodes will move into Aquarius and Leo. It's going to be interesting.
And that, when is that, 2026?
Yeah, because they're moving into Pisces, Virgo in January 2025. So by summer 2026, they'll have the nodes in Leo and Aquarius. That's
Wow.
gonna be 2026 is the outbreath for sure. So that's what I'm saying, you know, like the time is closing on us. Not in
Yeah.
a, you know, in whichever way you want to identify that fact, that is up to everybody's interpretation and the stories that they believe and that they tell themselves. But the truth, the factual truth that we can agree on is that in 2026 we'll have a lot of planetary masculine sign, including the nodes. And that is going to create certain energy for which we are preparing for in a real time, right here and right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So enjoy the in-breath.
But I mean, it's really, it's you know, it's an interesting experience to be alive at these times. Like it's really the raw polarity of that. It is so extreme at the moment, the beauty and the pain, right? Which is, again, it's just like the flip side of the same coin. If you wouldn't like the, you know, the pleasure and the pain, right? Like if you didn't know one, you wouldn't know the other. And I just, again, and I know it comes rich from me being in my cushy, safe, comfortable home at the moment, but the times where humanity really accelerated and come together really was always after challenges. Always, you know, it was always the difficulties in a human his story that brought people together and then created the jump, the next shift. And
Yep.
in essence, that's where we are at now, because you know, when we think about what's been going on in the past decades, there was a lot of stuff. Yes, on a technological level, there's been a lot of progress, but on a spiritual level, there's been a lot of stagnation. Like we became complacent, we became comfortable, right? There wasn't that much happening. So in essence, there is a lot happening at the moment. And with Uranus being a sign of Taurus since 2018, but now with Jupiter coming into the play and Venus being the rule of the South Node and all these other things that's going on, it's becoming very obvious to us, very clear, as the time is passes and all this external is bringing us inwards, as they do, inner, outer, you know, with the planets and planet signs being the yin and yang. We are really reevaluating everything, you know, reevaluating our relationships to ourselves, to others, reevaluating what matters, our priorities. We are reevaluating everything. So in a sense, if what is happening, it wasn't happening, we wouldn't have been doing that. And maybe that's what needs to happen right now. And the way, unfortunately, that it is being experienced, and I still say that the people that are being right there at the front lines, like I salute them for their bravery, that the souls put the hands up and said that I will do it. I will do it for others. You know, it's the ultimate service to other. And when I always try to zoom out and look at it from that perspective, which I know it's easy for me to say because I didn't choose that front row in this particular time, right here, right now, it is, in essence, when we all return back to where we came from, it was all to serve a purpose. Even though being here, right here and right now, having this human experience and this filter of humanity, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't, but there is a purpose to madness.
Yeah.
So even that which is taking place right now, there is a reason for why it is happening. And ultimately we know that it's happening for us to heal, integrate, and to be able to move forward and have a better experience that we've had until this point because of the opportunity to make a different choice under the same old circumstances.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. Well, I'm praying that we make different choices. I mean, I'm attempting to make different choices. This is happening to me on the personal level. So if that's happening to other people as well, then things ought to change on the outside. What do they say? You just need 51%?
Yeah, right.
Make the change.
Well, I mean, I would be very surprised if people well, most people on this planet were not experiencing this in some way, shape, and form in their intimate reality, in their individual life. And it all starts with your personal environment. Like, I mean, for me, you know, on my personal level, being around my parents, getting triggered to hell and back, you know, recently visiting my friends in England, walking down the memory lane, and again having the opportunity to cohabit with people with different stories, different needs and values. And this is where it begins. You know, it's these people in your everyday environment, whether it's your partner, your children, your parents, your friends, your boss, the clerk, you know, or the person at the grocery store. This is where it begins, this microcosm, when we have the opportunity to make a different choice, right? This is where it begins, and then it's just a ripple effect where it ripples out into cities, countries, you know, continents, whatever you want to call it. But it starts with this little microcosm, and we have the experience to make the different choice on daily basis, sometimes on hourly basis.
Yeah. I think because the South Node and Venus is such a big players right now, that one of the most important things that we can do when we are meeting with different people that we already know, or people that we are just meeting, is just to listen. This is the Libra archetype, is to listen. You know, don't try to fix anything, just listen, hold space. And I think that that can be helpful. And I think that, you know, part of what's going on in the world is people aren't listening. And I think that that's been a pattern that we don't want to keep repeating.
But it is still the Mercury Jupiter, isn't it? Mercury is about talking and listening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, is it's closing that way of just talking. And maybe now we can add that listening, you know, as we begin to make change in the way that we're communicating.
Yeah, it's the what is it? Six of Pentacles, right? Giving and receiving.
Oh yeah.
Six of
I like that
Pentacles.
card. I used to
Giving and
get that card a
receiving.
lot.
That's a good card. Giving and receiving. It's the
Yeah.
balance, the card of balance.
It is the card of balance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah. It is very, you know, sad if you need to put a label to it, but on a grand scheme of things, like I understand, and I hope that when people really think about what's going on, that some people start to like understand. They start to understand what is actually the story, and why is it still being repeating itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm doing my best to make those changes in myself, trying to listen more, talk less. Not always.
Well, yeah, me with my Mercury in Aries, yeah.
Yeah, well, my Mercury's in Aquarius, so I'm definitely trying to break old patterns of communication in this lifetime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think perhaps we should close this very deep, intense conversation.
Yeah, I think so. But this is good, you know, just to recap on it, this is a powerful energy. These are powerful times. This eclipse is going to be strong. And yeah, we're focusing on uncovering stuff and things that are hidden within ourselves, things that are hidden within truths that we've been told, and really exposing those things and beginning to see, maybe see the world in a different light, to be able to make changes for our future. Yeah.
Yeah, just try to flip it on its head, the inverted reality that we've been experiencing. Like everything is kind of upside down.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's why I like the Hangman, you know.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just need to flip it on its head. And then, you know, he doesn't look upset. So maybe.
No, he doesn't look upset.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. If you're still listening. But I feel that with this massive Scorpionic energy, even this, though this is not the new moon in Scorpio, of course, that's the one coming next. But this is a culmination of a cycle that I feel that is much older than 2 years, as we've been discussing also prior to some songs that have been coming onto my consciousness recently.
Yeah.
But as we know, there is nothing new under the sun. But for our near past, this is a culmination of a 2-year cycle that started in November 2021. And yeah, you can introspect and retrospect about what's been kind of becoming more clear to you over the past 2 years with regards to your needs, values, relationship to yourself and others, and the belief systems, that the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah. So true.
Excellent. So Adrienne, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me at Just Karen Astrology. I have a Facebook page. You can reach out to me there. I also have a Substack account where I am posting new and full moon reports. And getting ready to post one here in a couple of days. And yeah, you can, I've got an email, heartplace@peoplepc.com. You can reach out to me. I do readings and consultations. I'm available.
Yeah, I feel that now at the Scorpio season, a lot of people might be needing a safe space to express their deepest thoughts to someone, and Adrienne can absolutely hold that space for you. And yeah, if you guys looking for me, you can find me on my social medias or my website, moonlightsoul369.com. And yeah, reach out if you need someone to talk to. But most and foremost, trust yourselves.
Definitely trust yourselves.
Exactly. So thank you all for listening. Enjoy this full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, and we'll see you again for the next one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.